Hello, hello, and welcome to Minding My Mental Health. I am Tenitria Williams, and I have my illustrious guest, Miss Shawndra Washington. I want to just welcome everybody. I'm going to give people a few moments to jump on. I'm actually going to look. I'm going to let Shawndra see, she want to share this to her page. If you don't have that, we're going to take just one moment to share so we can get our viewers here. I see one person on. Let us know where you're watching from. Hashtag live and let us know where you are watching from. We're going to make sure that we're doing our sharing on social media as well. Let's see, it should be here. Where are you guys watching from? Let us know. What city? Okay, it's on my page. I'm going to share it to a couple groups. There we go. Hi, Centrisa. Go ahead and share, tag your friends, family. I see a couple people jumping on, share, again, tag your friends, family. Anybody that you know that may have some questions for Dr. Washington, let us know. So we're going to go ahead. We don't want to take too much time today. We want to go ahead and get started. So thank you, Shawndra, for agreeing to this interview. I appreciate you. You know I love you. So, Centrisa, hey, y'all.
Hey, Centrisa.
So you do a lot of stuff and you have a lot of experience in different areas. Some of those areas don't always even seem to like go hand in hand. You have your foot over here in politics. You have your foot over in the medication field or realm world. Also, being a deliverance minister in church. So you've got a lot of things going. How do you kind of take off those hats, or are there times when it feels like those things oppose each other, or you're feeling like you're pulled in different directions?
Well, I don't know if it feels that they oppose each other. I think that I have really been intentional about integrating every part of who I am into every part of who I am.
Mm.
That just makes it so much easier to exist because I don't feel like in one space I can only do this. So even in politics, there are times that medical related things come up. There are times that medication related things come through a meeting. You have to call on the name of the Lord Jesus, to even be able to get through. So that's one of the things I've really been intentional about doing, is trying to integrate every part of who I am and what I do into every.
Okay. Uh-oh. Chandra, you're froze on me, I think. Okay, there we go. Can you see and
Oh,
hear me okay?
okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
good. All right. So tell us about your journey to become a pharmacist.
Okay. So honestly, I have always wanted to be a pharmacist since I was like 4 or 5 years old. I don't really know desire came from. I believe, well, I know that the desire came from God, but when I was younger, I'm like, did I just enjoy going to the pharmacy? Being from a small, when you went to the pharmacy, they had toys and books and candy. So I'm like, maybe that is what really piques my interest. But I have always known that I would be a pharmacist. I did take a non-traditional route to get there, but I always knew that was the end goal. That was the end career goal.
Wow, I didn't know that that was like a childhood dream for you.
Yep.
Okay. And what challenges did you face to get to that role?
So some of the challenges that I faced, number one, um, you don't have to have a degree to go to pharmacy school. So I was like, I'm going to take the prerequisites. I'm going to go to pharmacy school. And my mama was like, you are not. You are getting a degree. So
Mm.
I majored in chemistry, which was hard. And by the time I finished my chemistry degree, I was like, listen, I don't want to go sit in anybody's school. I don't talk to me about chemistry. Don't talk to me about pharmacy. And so that was the first major roadblock, because getting a chemistry degree was just hard. And I knew that getting a pharmacy degree was going to be even harder. And at that time, and my maturity level may not have been where it needed to be. Uh, and I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna find something else to do. I'm not doing that. Only to come back about 4 or 5 years later and to actually end up going to pharmacy school. So the desire never ever left. Even though I liked what I was doing, I was a teacher for about 5 years and I really enjoyed it, but I knew that that's not the only thing that I was supposed to be doing.
Okay, I forgot about the teaching stuff. Although I've actually been to some of your classes, I forgot you were like a teacher like
Mhm,
in school. So
mhm.
yeah, you really have had a lot of hats. Now you also are a justice of the peace. Tell us about your journey to do that.
So I decided to run for justice of the peace for a number of reasons. First of all, if you all will remember back in like 2013, 14, I don't remember anyway, whenever the Michael Brown situation happened in Ferguson. And I was so very frustrated because, there was all this chatter. The grand jury is not going to indict. And I was like, well, where does the grand jury come from? It comes from local people. Okay. So the prosecutor is local, the defense attorney is local. Everything that affected that
Mm,
was local. And we tend to overlook local government. We always want to look at what's going on in Washington, D.C. when we're most impacted by what happens locally. So I started paying more attention and just started getting involved and going to different meetings. And I was at this meeting that they were trying to encourage people to run for office. And so as I look around the room, they were talking about, oh, we're diverse, we're this. And I look around the room, I'm like, but I'm the only Black person in here. And
mm,
I'm one of maybe 3 or 4 women. So I asked the question, if you're serious about diversity and inclusion and you want to encourage people to run, why are there not more people that look like me or other people that are in this room? And so then I'm like, well, girl, if you're going to talk about them, what are you going to do? So
right.
I
Okay.
made the decision to run.
So now, Shawndra, let me ask this because you mentioned the Michael Brown with
Mhm,
Ferguson, and I remember for me, the moment was probably Trayvon when Trayvon Martin was killed, and I just remember going to work and really just being bothered
mhm.
by this current situation. Tell me from Trayvon to Michael Brown to just situations we saw in 2020, all of those things. How did those things impact your mental health? How did you stay
Oh my
sane
goodness.
during when we have those type of situations in the world?
See, I had even forgotten that Trayvon Martin happened first. Now
Yeah.
that was very, listen, if I had to do a lot of work around that because during that time I had a son and my son was middle school, you know, and I would be at work. He would have to ride the bus home. Well, kids wore hoodies, they wore things. And I just remember being so terrified. And so I'm like, you call me as soon as you get home. And I would be at work, like watching the clock. And so if he got home and he didn't call, I would be fussing. And I'm talking to him about when you're walking through the neighborhood, don't walk too slow, don't walk too fast, don't have your head on.
Mm,
And I went through a lot of anxiety behind that
yeah.
because it's like, is my child safe when I'm not there? And even I remember having to talk to him about going to the mall and don't be with more than 2 or 3 people in a group. Don't go in these stores because even though you have money to shop here, they may think that you don't. Don't pick up anything. Always get a receipt. So there was that really did a number. I had a lot of worry and anxiety
Yeah.
about that. And also even uh I would say even some depression just on the state of the value of what I consider to be the value of young Black men's lives at that
Yeah.
point. So it was a lot.
And so I mean, we didn't plan to go this route necessarily with this conversation, but I think it's really important that people understand when we're talking about protecting your mental health, it's not just about, oh, I don't have anxiety over a specific, I don't have just generalized anxiety, or I don't have clinical depression. Things
Mhm.
in life can happen, and we start to have those responses, and you start to recognize I'm being a lot more cautious when going out, or I'm being super anxious when my kids, I'm dropping my children off, or those small things can really take a toll on us. So it really is important that we stay in a state where we are taking care of our mental health all the time. So, because I tell people all the time, the battle is not the time you prepare.
That's right.
And so we oftentimes we kind of wait for, oh, a big breakdown to say, well, now use all your coping skills. I didn't develop coping skills during the off season. So now when the battle hits, I don't have anything to pull from. And so I think, again, and just in life, and this, I want this broadcast to reach a lot of people, to do, a lot of things, but I have a purpose to really tear down the stigma in the African American community about dealing with our mental health. And this is one of those things that we have to deal with as Black people in America, to say, hey, there are things that impact us, and it may not be happening necessarily in my house, but on a global issue, those things still impact us tremendously. Mm-hmm. And I saw a rise in Black clients during 2020, and they would come in and they'd say, I can't deal with this from the global standpoint. I need some help. Things in their home may be fine, but there was still that stress, added stress within the home. So again, I think that's really important, and I'm glad we're talking about that. So tell me, we're talking about tearing down this stigma in the African American community. As a pharmacist, what were some of the myths that or some of the biggest myths that you feel like you had to tear down when it came to medication and people being medicated for specifically mental health concerns?
Oh, well, I'll say this. I'll lead by saying this. People of other racial groups and ethnicities do not share the same stigma about mental health, in my perspective and in my experiences, that we do. When I would have a Black woman to come pick up an antidepressant, we have to have a whole 30-minute conversation about how they weren't crazy, they weren't weak. They like, ma'am, listen, my responsibility is to tell you what this medication is for, how to take it, what you should expect. There's absolutely no judgment. Meanwhile, people in other racial groups or ethnic groups would be like, hey girl, can you get my happy pills ready for me? And so it's like, it was such a stark difference, because on one hand, people understand that, this is going on with me mentally, and in order for me to function in life the way that I want to function, or to be the best version of myself, I need to take this medication. And they did, and it was okay. And then there were other people that were resistant, or they wouldn't get the refills. They were trying to medicate themselves, or trying to, well, I'm only going to take it one time a week. And I'm like, that doesn't even make sense. It doesn't. Medications don't work when you don't take them exactly as prescribed. So some of the things that I've heard, or that people have said to me is, but I do believe in God. I do have faith. Yet no one is questioning your faith. And in the Black church, we need to stop that. We need to stop getting up in our churches, standing up in the pulpits, telling people that they don't have any faith if they are dealing with depression, and telling them that they don't need medications and they need to leave that stuff alone. They need to pray and trust God. We need to stop that. So that was one of the bigger things, or them, saying, I'm not a weak person. I promise I'm not crazy, and just all of those things. And so I really felt like I was doing like soul shifts instead of just counseling on medications, because now I have to talk to you about how I don't see you any differently. And it was worse if it was someone that I knew.
Yeah, I could see that being a thing. So again, I think you bring up a great point. Number one, this may mean I'm really crazy. And I think that's what a lot of people go, oh, I'm not real crazy. And it's, it's okay. One of the things that somebody taught me, I think it was Pastor Dollar, if I'm not mistaken, but somebody, I was hearing them teach, and they were saying, if you're believing for healing of your eyesight, you keep wearing your glasses until wearing your glasses no longer helps you, and it actually makes it worse. And so I think sometimes people say, oh, well, if I have faith, I'm not going to wear these glasses. And then you cause 5 wrecks. It's like, no, keep them on until you recognize, hey, my head hurts with these glasses. I can take them off. Oh, I can see. So, allow those different things. And I think even the fact that, you are worked as a pharmacist, I work as a counselor. I'm like, you know what? God put these desires in our hearts. He wouldn't tell us to do something that he wouldn't. And I know some things come directly from him. And I know this part of this is part of my calling. he wouldn't put this in my heart for counseling to then go against his
Exactly.
will, you know. So again, I'm really glad you were able to break that down. It's not about a lack of faith. It's not about um it's not a weakness. Sometimes our brains may produce different things, and until
Mhm.
we can learn effectively how to deal with some things, medication may be what we need. Even sometimes, even when we know effectively, you still may need some different things in your brain and your body.
Exactly.
Can you tell us more from the, I guess, medication side? What's the role of medication when you're talking about mental health issues? What can you break it down and get us a little science background of what's happening?
So here's what I wish that most people would understand, that in the same way that we would expect someone who has diabetes that cannot control their blood sugar with diet and exercise alone, we would expect them to take medications. We expect someone with hypertension or someone with high cholesterol to take medication so they don't have a heart attack or a stroke. So when we're talking about people with mental health challenges, that is a medical condition. There are structural changes that happen in the brain. There are some people who experience, like, for example, depression may not have enough serotonin in the brain. And so medications help to correct the that part of the depression. It helps to correct that. So you have medications that increase the serotonin in your brain when your body can't do it by itself. So you feel better. And I just think that, you know, we have medications for a reason. I know some people are very anti-medicine. I've had people to tell me, how can I be a believer and be pro-medicine because the whole pharmacia is like a whole bunch of stuff. But like you said, I know that this desire to be a pharmacist came from God. He would not have me in a profession that is in opposition with what he believes. There are people who are spirit-filled pharmacists. Like, when if somebody came to me and had a diagnosis that they didn't want, and they would say, I know you can't pray for me right now, but when you get home, can you pray for? I absolutely can. I can join my faith with yours that this diagnosis is just that, a diagnosis. So it's the same way when we're talking about medications that help our mental health. There are a number of them, a number of different therapeutic categories, some that work different ways. And the thing is that there are so many options. So if one doesn't work for you, because some people will do that, they'll try something and say, oh, they didn't make me feel better. Well, there are others in that category that may work for you. Sometimes it's trial and error. Sometimes you may not always get immediate results, especially with antidepressants. People will take one dose and say, I still feel the same. Well, yeah. Just like if you have a headache sometimes, and you can take 2 Tylenol, but you only take one, you may not get the relief that
Mm-hmm.
you're searching for. So with antidepressants, like, you may not see any improvement until 2 weeks. You won't see the maximum improvement until 4 weeks. So we don't ever want to say this isn't working when we haven't given the medication long enough to work. So I tell everyone, if you take the time out to go to the doctor and your chief complaint is, I feel that I have I'm not well mentally. If you take the time to go to the doctor, you take the time to talk to them, they take the time to give you a diagnosis and a prescription, the least you could do is get that prescription filled and take it. Like, otherwise, what was all this for? So if you weren't going to do what the solution was, then why go through all of those things? So I'm a huge proponent of people taking medications when they have been prescribed and when they need it. Now, if you get a clear word from the Lord that you don't need to take it, I'm not telling you to go against God. But see, some people be making up stuff because they want to say what the Lord said, because they don't want to be ashamed for taking
Mm-hmm.
the medication. So just some things I always tell people: understand why you're taking the medication,
Mm-hmm.
understand what it's supposed to do. Understand how it's supposed to make you feel. Understand how you're supposed to take it. And if you have issues with any of those things, speak with your pharmacist or speak with your doctor. But whatever you do, if you are taking a medication for any type of mental illness, you don't ever want to abruptly stop taking it. That is very dangerous, very
Mhm.
dangerous.
Yeah, and the other thing is, when you talked about stopping to take it, I don't want people to feel like I have to be on this for the rest of my life. There are
Right.
tons of people who come
Yes.
in and
Mhm.
they say, "I'm on medication, but I don't want to be on it." I said, "Well, let's work on a plan, and we'll have to be in conjunction with your doctor. But we can, as you're learning skills in therapy,
Mhm.
you start to implement those skills, and then you can start learning how to handle things, maybe possibly without medication. And I say possibly because, again, you want to make sure you're talking with your doctor and you're weaning off of these things as your skill level is growing. But there are also times where people have come in and they've had therapy and they're going through and they've been doing it a long time, and they go, I'm not getting it. They don't remember what we're talking about. They get on medication, which allows them to be clearer, and now when they come in, they go, now I actually am clear enough that I can implement the things that we've talked about. I can stop and challenge my thinking, and I can do these things that we've talked about in therapy. And so talk therapy plus medication is oftentimes a really powerful combination. And again, sometimes you start to wean off some of the medication as those skill levels improve and as healing takes place. Sometimes that's not the case. And so, but it is about, like you said, if you have a clear word that says don't take a medication or don't take a specific medication or whatever, we're always going to say,
Mhm.
listen to that, of course. So,
And
um,
I'm excuse me just one
okay.
moment. I'm sorry. But I'm glad that you mentioned about the therapy because psychotherapy is something that we kind of skip over. The best treatment for any type of mental illness is the psychotherapy and the medication. So even just medication alone, it's going to fix what's wrong structurally or what's wrong chemically, but psychotherapy gives you the tools and the coping skills. So, I
Yeah, and
mean,
it helps to challenge the way you're thinking,
mhm,
because if you get things chemically up here, but you still think fundamentally, I don't deserve to be happy.
mhm.
Guess what? Your thinking is going to impact how you show up in the world, and you're still going to do some self-sabotage behavior. And so, yeah, I like
Yeah.
people to understand that there are a lot of different options for us to get to our best self, emotionally, mentally, and all of those things. As we've talked about earlier, there is a stigma oftentimes with medication, heck, just a stigma with mental health in general when you talk about it. And I tend to use that terminology on purpose, mental health, um, because I want people to understand it's a spectrum, right?
Mhm,
We often hear people talk about mental illness, but we don't
mhm.
always talk about mental health. And I tell people, if you take care of your mental health, oftentimes you never have to deal with mental illness,
That's true.
because mental health is, I mean, just like our bodies, if you are proactive in the way you eat and the way you take care of yourself, oftentimes, we're not saying this is 100%, but oftentimes you're going to decrease the chances of having illness if you're eating right, you're getting enough sleep, you're drinking water, you're regulating your mind and your emotions and all of those things. And so I want to talk about, how do we shift from this stigma of medication, or dealing with our mental health in the Black community in particular, but again across the board. How do you think we can shift that dynamic?
I think that education is key. So we have to know and understand what mental health is. Because a lot of times in our community, we've used terminology like, girl, they just crazy. You know something wrong with them. And even I have really tried to eliminate the word crazy out of my vocabulary because while I may be saying it in a joking manner, you never know who is around where you're
Yes.
speaking.
Hmm.
And I never ever want anyone to feel any type of way because I'm just out here being reckless with what I'm saying. So I really try not, in mixed crowds or whatever, or even if I'm speaking or teaching, like I really try not to use that word crazy because there is so much stigma. Like crazy never means good. It never means anything good. It always has a negative connotation. So I think that education, so educating ourselves, what does mental health, or mental wellness mean? What does this really mean? Okay. So then when I educate myself, then I in turn can educate others. So one of the other things that I do, if you are in my presence and you say that someone is crazy, I'm like, hey, we can use another word for that. You can describe people's behaviors, use your words. We don't have to just say crazy, you know. Also, that we understand that we're creating safe spaces for people. If someone that you knew, because 1 in 5 people are challenged in their mental health. So it stands to
Say it
reason we
again for them so they can hear that.
1 in 5 people. So based on just the number of people that are on here, it's some statistically, there could be someone who is watching who may be challenged in their mental health. So I want to be sure that I'm creating safe spaces. I want to be sure that if someone confides in me that they're having, you know, challenges in their mental health, that first of all, I'm reassuring them nothing is wrong with you. You still, hey, you still my girl. How do I support you? I have friends that have challenges. And so I'm like, well, what does me supporting you look like? So when you get into a super depressive state, how do you want me to interact with you? And if they say, well, I want you to leave me alone. Okay, that's what I cannot do. I cannot leave you alone, you know? And so we've said this, and it's like, okay, I'm going to call you. If you do not feel like talking to me, you can text me back and say, Shawndra, I just don't feel like talking right now. I'm okay. I just don't feel like talking. I will respect that. But if I keep calling you and you do not respond, I'm going to start calling mamas. I'm going to start popping up at your job. I'm going to come ring your doorbell. And I think that we need to have those types of relationships. People know that whatever it is they're going through, they're never going through alone. If I have friends that may call me at midnight and saying, I am in a really, really low place right now, girl, we're going to sit up and talk on the phone. If that's what you need me to do, but we have established what support looks like to them. So I think that that's very important in creating safe spaces. I think it's important also for us to be advocates. So even if you are not affected by mental wellness, if your mental wellness is intact, you have to understand that other people's may not be. So any place that you have influence, you want to be advocating. So for instance, I'm on I'm a justice of the peace. Well, what we know is that there are a lot of people, I believe the statistics were like 50 to 60% of the people who are in jail or prison that are not really being treated adequately for their for mental illness. So if I'm in a position where I'm able to influence an ordinance or some type of legislation or something, then because I understand it, that's my job to say, hey guys, let's think about this. What can we do to help those people? So I think it really is about education and creating safe spaces and us maintaining confidence when people give it to us, and just us just being decent to people.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Yeah, being kind to people when they're struggling. And I think so many times, particularly people in faith, we're so quick. If someone says, I feel depressed, no, you don't. Watch your words.
It's the devil. That ain't nothing but the devil.
So you're so quick to shut down someone saying that. And I know the intention is, hey, we don't want to claim something that is not from God. We want to make sure that our words align with the kingdom. And so our intentions are pure. But oftentimes what people say is, oh, well, that's not a safe place for me to say that. So I don't. And I shut down.
And I also want to add, even if we have children, because we have to remember that these kids went through a whole pandemic that they didn't know how to navigate. So they were pulled out of school, which for a kid is their social setting. They were stuck in the house. They were doing school online. They couldn't go anywhere and all of those things. So when your children say, hey, I feel a certain way. Hey, is it okay for I want to talk to someone to talk through my feelings? Then that same thing applies, because as parents, we're responsible for taking care of the mental wellness and mental health of our children, and not being dismissive. Ain't nothing wrong with you. What you got to be depressed about? Whatever those parent things that people say. You don't do nothing. I do it.
Mhm.
All that
No, no,
because
no.
it's
I'm so glad you brought that up because I think we do it. You're right. With kids, we do that with believers. And again, it's not about, we don't want our people to allow to have reckless mouths, but we do want to make sure that we are saying, hey, if you're feeling a certain way, we're not going to pretend like you're not. We're going to
yeah.
actually pluck that up from the root and get
Mhm.
to, hey, let's actually get some real healing and not pretending. And I think that's really
Yep.
one of the biggest issues when you're talking about stigma. That's really where it comes from, where people say, I tried to tell y'all I was not in a good headspace, and you told me, yes, you are. Go play. You told me I was fine. Go pray. Go play or go pray is what we tell them. And so people say, well, I tried to do that, and now I don't feel safe to share it because that was my that was what was going on with me, and I didn't feel safe enough to share because you immediately just said you'll be fine, go pray, or
Mhm.
you are fine, go play. And so
Yeah.
again, I think it's so important that we are able to listen to children, to other believers, to say, hey, that's, you know what, if you say I'm depressed rather than no you're not, be healed in Jesus name. Great, great, great. Thank you. I am healed by the stripes of Jesus, but I need to walk this out. So
Mhm.
what are the steps? And so if someone says something to you and you have that initial reaction to tell them they're fine, go, you know what? I believe has healing for you. Let's look at what that looks like for you to be able to see the manifestation of that. Because
Mhm.
so many times, especially when we're talking suicide types of things, people have, not always, but oftentimes they have reached out or cried out for help, and everybody just dismissed it. I don't know how many. If I see somebody posting about, I don't know if I can make it, I'm having a rough time. Listen, know how fast I'm in their inbox.
Exactly.
Hey, you don't even know me very well, but I just read your status. Why? Because I genuinely care about people, but also I want people to know that I'm not going to dismiss your concerns. You put that out there, and even if people think it's for attention, you got mine.
Mhm.
And I want to give space for that, for us to be able to say, hey, I'm struggling right now. And I think that's the thing that we have to remember, that people will struggle in our job. Is to be able to
Yeah.
have space for them to have that experience and say, hey, you don't have to be here alone, and you also don't have to stay here.
Yep.
You don't have to stay in this position. um Chandra, a lot of people say I would try that medication, but the side effects are worse than the reason I went in. We've all made fun of commercials or heard of commercials where they say, take this, it may occur sudden blindness, a heart attack, this. You're like, it was for a headache. And now you're telling me I may go blind and I can't walk. Why would I take a medicine for a
Yeah.
headache when I might lose my eyesight? And what do you say when you hear those um, people that are afraid of dealing with the side effects, or even maybe getting addicted to medication?
I think that first people need to understand that like when you're watching those commercials and things on TV, if it came up during the clinical trial, they're going to talk about it. So like if you ever read an insert, it's like pages and pages in that little bitty print. Um, it's not saying that it absolutely will, but it's more of a proactive and risk management to say that it could. So I think first of all, people need to understand that. Secondly, there are some side effects of medications, and I think that is one of the reasons why when you're talking to your doctor or to your pharmacist, especially your pharmacist, and if you live in the state of Arkansas and in most other states, I'm not familiar with all of the laws, but I do know that in Arkansas, every time you get a new medication, you have it's the law. It's mandatory that you're counseled on that medication, so
Mm.
you should know what to expect. Now, some things are bothersome, some things not so much. Some side effects will go away the longer you take the medication and you get tolerance. One very non-specific thing that most people complain about with any medication is it makes my stomach hurt. Okay. Okay. So did you try eating with it? You know, what time of day did you take it? Like those are all things
Mhm.
that you can work through and talk through. But I would tell everybody that you have to weigh, am I more concerned about alleviating a minor and temporary inconvenience, which would be the side effects, am I more concerned about that than I am about managing my mental wellness?
Yeah.
Is it worth it for me to remain in a depressive state because I don't want my stomach to hurt? Because some of the side effects of some of the medications, they do upset your stomach. Some cause you to be super sleepy. Well, if that's the case, take it at night. Some cause you to be super alert. Well, if that's the case, take it in the morning. Some cause
Yeah.
you to want to eat more. Some cause you to want to eat less. So for every side effect, there is something that can be done to help alleviate that. And maybe that may not be the medication for you. Maybe there's something else within that category that would work for you and would have fewer side effects. But once again, I think those are conversations that we should not decide preemptively, because how have you decided that a medication is going to give you side effects when you haven't even taken it? And
Right.
that's what I hear from people. I'm like, well, did you take it? What happened? Oh, I ain't take it. Okay, okay. I'm like, so you're having side effects? And they're like, well, no. Okay, so you think you're going to have side effects? Yeah, okay, but you don't know that for sure. So I'm like, you have to at least take it once or twice to see. So I just think that that's the main thing, just being very communicative. And so if it's so bothersome, like if you take something and it gives you diarrhea all day every day, that's bothersome and you can't work.
Right.
You call your doctor and say, hey, listen, I don't know, I think it's the medicine. And they may be able to talk you through other things, and you might discover that you just had some bad sushi 2 or 3 days in a row, So, but those are things that still need to be talked about and discussed with
Mhm.
your doctor and with your pharmacist. So
Yeah.
I would think that it's very presumptive to assume that you're going to have every side effect that is listed on the drug information, and to use that as an excuse for not taking the medication.
Yeah. And for the people who are believers and they say, it's an issue with their faith, I think you can ask God. You can say, hey, do I need to take this medicine? Um, the doctor prescribed it. Is this the right medicine for me?
Mhm,
Take that to God. Like, hey,
mhm,
should I be, give me some insight? And there are oftentimes, I remember once, and it wasn't a medication for mental health issues, it was actually like an allergy medicine. But I was being super, I'm not gonna take medicine, girl. And I was like, no, I'm gonna just deal with this and these allergies. And I was just really very strict with it. And it was really clear. God was like, you need to take a Claritin. I was like, oh, well, okay. I went bought the Claritin. I took one Claritin. I don't know why I needed that one. I did not have to use any more out of that box. I got that one Claritin and I was good for the rest of the season. I mean, we obviously know that
mhm,
that one Claritin didn't do anything for the rest of the season, but I said it must have been something in my body that needed something. Something had to be just right. And it was like, oh, well, I'm glad I listened, because the
mhm,
allergies have been kind of kicking my tail
mhm.
for a little while. And so I think, again, that's really important that we are able um, to stay in alignment in that. Now, again, we talked about you having a lot of different hats and all of that. Tell us about any time, and you kind of alluded to at least one situation um, when you've had to overcome some mental health challenge or concern, and how did you do that?
So, anybody who is a pharmacist or a politician will tell you that stress is just stress. So stress from trying to meet metrics, stress from trying to get everything done, stress from people being mean to you, anxiety over I can't make a mistake. And like that weighs so heavy. And people think that I'm joking when I would tell them that my prayer every day would be, Lord, please just don't let me kill nobody today.
Mm,
And it's funny to people who don't do it. But if you work in a pharmacy and you understand that if you overlook one thing, or if some letters are inverted, how close the drug names are, or if you miss an allergy that
yeah.
you literally could kill someone. And so just the anxiety over, like there will be times I will be at home in the bed and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and I jump up and I think about a prescription that I had filled that day, and I'm like, did I feel it right? Did
Mm,
that say, and it would just be just so random. But definitely anxiety from that. Also, even grief, because I worked in the same place for like 11 years. So most of those people were like family to me. And so there were times
mm,
when someone would get a diagnosis, a terminal diagnosis, or for someone to come see you to say, hey, I'm getting ready to go to hospice. I just want to stop by. Like
wow.
that
Yeah.
would be a lot. Or when people would pass away and their family members would come back,
Hmm.
need guidance on what to do with the medications and different things like that, because you don't really understand how attached you are to people, because you're just like, I just fill their prescriptions. But no, it's like we're friends. So those types of things. And even I would also say, living here, that there's not a lot of us, and so there have been times that people have just been very unnecessarily mean and said really mean things. Like they would come and I need to talk to the pharmacist. Well, I am the pharmacist, so I want to talk to the other one. And there's
Mm,
not another one here. Like the other person here is not a pharmacist. Or they would just ignore me to talk to that individual, only for that individual to have to come talk to me to give them the information that they need. So
mm,
things like that, you know, um, because that could make you feel like, dang, should I really be here? You
right.
know, am I good enough? And all of those types of things. And so, what I really had to do to deal with that, a lot of it came with the work that we did in Soul Shift. And even before that, I just got to the point where I was like, listen, I'm the drug expert. I'm the drug expert. And whether people want to accept that or not, that is on them. But
Mm.
I went to school, I graduated, I passed the licensing exam, I do all this continuing education. I ain't never killed nobody. Like, I'm the drug expert. And so
Can
it
we
was.
just pause for a minute and just talk about how important that is to our own mental health to be able to
Mhm,
own who we are?
mhm,
Like, I do this. I'm good at this, or
mhm.
I've studied for this. I have experience. All of that. Sometimes we push that down, and that even impacts our mental health.
It does.
Just like, and for you to be able to say, listen, when it comes to this, I do know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And I don't have to pretend like, oh, I'm just little Shawndra. No, no,
I'm the expert.
you owned it. And I think
Yeah,
that is important when
exactly.
we're talking about, and even when I want to talk to the people for a second, when you are out there and you're talking to your doctors, you are the expert in your life. And when it comes to advocating for yourself. And so if someone just says, oh, that's nothing, and you're going, no, I'm the expert on my body, and I'm telling you, this thing is hurting more than it normally does, and it's not right. Or I know I don't usually feel this angry all the time. You have to advocate for yourself, because you have to be kind of that boss, like Shawndra just said. I'm the expert in this situation. Okay, now we can go back. I'm sorry. I just want to
Oh
insert that.
no, no, but that's really another part of it too, just being able to advocate for yourself when you're in the doctor's office. Like you said, you know your body better than anyone else. Nobody can tell you more about your body. They can't tell you about how you feel or any of that, And so much of navigating the healthcare system really is advocating for yourself. And I'm just going to tell you, if you see a doctor and they ignore you, you need to go somewhere else. If you're going to a pharmacy and the pharmacist cannot take out time to answer your questions, now I'm not talking about you monopolizing all of their time because it's busy. But if you walk up and you have a question for me, I can answer your question.
Hmm.
Or I can be like, hey, right now I have this going on. Can I call you back if it's not something that's
Right.
pressing, or you call me back? But if you have people who ignore what you're saying about yourself and who
Hmm.
discount what you say about yourself, then part of your self-care, we haven't gotten to that yet, but part of your self-care is advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
But go somewhere else and tell them why you're going. Now, I'm not talking about like go cuss them out and tell them, but really, because sometimes they'll send, when you leave a place,
Mm.
they want to do a survey. Hey, I left because I really didn't feel that I got the attention that I needed to the questions that I had. Now, once again, I'm not talking about trying to monopolize people's time, because the doctor cannot spend an hour with you. They cannot do that. But being prepared and saying, hey, these are the questions that I had. Can you talk to me more about that? And I can't tell you how many, it hasn't been a lot, but if I'm taking my children to the doctor, or if I go and they are rude or they are insensitive, or if they start saying stuff wrong, I'm not coming back. And before I leave the visit, I had taken one of my kids to the doctor for something. And what the nurse practitioner said was just wrong about the drugs. Wrong.
Mm.
Not, it could have been, it was just wrong. And so when I said something, she said, yeah, it's just funny how people always look things up on Google and think they're experts. I said, ma'am, I'm a licensed pharmacist, and what you said was wrong. It was just wrong. And then it turned to, oh, well, I didn't mean, because see, what we about to do is not come back over here anymore. Like, I left that whole practice. Because we're not, nope, and nope. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think we have to stay here for a minute. That whole aspect of advocating for yourself and speaking up for yourself, even if it's someone really pushing a drug and you say, I know in the past that type of drug did not, I had really bad side effects. I've had people come in and say, the doctor says this, but the last time I took that, I felt suicidal. You need to say that to that doctor. The last time I took that type of medication or that classification, this is what happened. Advocate for yourself, because you are, you are the expert in that situation. You know your history better than your doctor. And so being able to say, hey, these are the things that I know impact me. What do you say, Shawndra, to someone who would say, I'm just 100% anti-medication?
I would say to them, like we said earlier, that the psychotherapy and medication, they're partners. And if you're just doing one, your treatment is incomplete. So you cannot expect the maximum results. They may get some relief, but you can't expect the maximum results if you don't have enough serotonin in your brain and you don't have something that's going to increase the serotonin in your brain. Like, it just doesn't work that way. And so I would, as a pharmacist, I would always ask more probing questions. Well, let's talk more about this. And then you find out a number of things that don't necessarily have anything to do with the mental wellness, but everybody knows, like when I was growing up, somebody who went to the hospital and they died. Or somebody who started taking medication and they died. And so they're making the correlation, which isn't really a correlation. And then I'm able to talk them through that. Well, have you considered that it could have been that the condition had gone on for so long that by the time they started taking the medicine, but they don't even think about that.
Right.
They're just trying to say, well, if you take the medicine, you're going to die. Or if you take the medicine, I'm going to get hooked on it. I'm going to become dependent. And with the mechanism of action of these drugs, of your drugs that are used for mental wellness, they don't have that profile of people being addicted. And I tell everybody, if you use the medication for what it's for and how you're supposed to take it, you don't get addicted. I mean, think about opioids. Why do people get addicted to opioids? Because they take way more than what they're supposed to take. And then it doesn't touch the pain, then you have to keep taking more because you develop tolerance. Right. So that's why there's the dependency issue there. But when you take medications in the way that you're supposed to take them, then you don't really have to worry about becoming dependent on them.
Shawndra, you're giving out such good information. I want to tell everybody, if you're watching this, if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the comment section, because we want to give Shawndra the opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. Before we kind of open it up for questions from people watching, tell us, what does self-care look like for you? What is the Shawndra self-care regimen?
For me, self-care is whatever makes me feel good and whatever makes me feel happy. That's a number of things. So I like to read. Self-care for me is sometimes wrapping up in my blanket and getting on the couch and reading a book from cover to cover. Like, that's self-care. Self-care is, I love ink pens. So sometimes self-care is spending hours online, like, oh, let me pick out my next pen. Let me pick out a new journal. Self-care for me is making sure that I eat a balanced diet so that my body feels good and my mind feels good. Self-care is that I don't do nearly enough. Is moving my body, going for a walk, going for a run,
Mhm.
dancing, doing something for movement. Self-care is also erecting boundaries to say, okay, this is all I have to give to people today. And after this time, I don't have anything else for anybody else. And I'll holler at you tomorrow. Like, seriously saying, after this amount of time, yeah, I'm not going to do anything else. After this particular time, if there's a message in my inbox, unless it's pressing, like a true emergency, it can wait until tomorrow. So that's what self-care is for me. It's for, visiting my friends, hanging out, going to get a acai bowl. Like, yeah, just what
Okay.
makes me feel good.
So I don't see any questions over here. I know people are a little behind sometimes, so I want to give a few more minutes if anyone has any questions. Courtney Barnes says yes, boundaries, and I just want to say how much of a role boundaries play in maintaining healthy mental health. And oftentimes people go, "No, I do a good job with boundaries," but boundaries are so much more than just saying no about something. Sometimes boundaries are saying yes to yourself, saying yes to, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take this walk, even though there are other things I may have, need to do. I'm also going to say yes to this walk. I'm going to say yes to sunlight. I'm going to say yes to drinking water. I'm going to say yes to resting my body. And also I'm going to say yes to moving my body. I'm going to say yes to spending some time with friends. Yes to vacations. Yes to turning off the email notifications. Oftentimes what I've seen is most people think that nobody else can do that, whatever that is. If I turn my phone off, the whole world is going to stop. So I have to catch every phone call. It doesn't stop, guys. They'll call
I
somebody
used to be
else.
that person. And what I will tell you is, like, people who work in healthcare, we experience a lot. We have the propensity to have a lot of mental health challenges. And last year, or maybe it was the year before, but it's been during the pandemic, there was a pharmacist who was at work, was complaining of chest pain, and they were like, no, you cannot leave. Had
Wow.
a heart attack and died
Wow.
there. They were closed long enough to get their body out of the pharmacy. They were back up and running that afternoon. And that, like, we're not indispensable.
You are not. Go ahead and put that in the comment section.
He'll go on.
I am not indispensable, which means take care of yourself, because so many of us running, running, running. Oh, well, this person's having a crisis. Okay. That doesn't mean you have to now be in crisis mode with everybody who's having a crisis, because there will always be somebody in crisis in the world. So
Yes.
again, I think that's a very powerful example. This person's out there saying, hey, I need help. And they're saying, no, no, no. And they work themselves to such a degree that they didn't take that self-care. Michelle said, it was asking, is self-care, can massage be considered a self-care? And I think, is there a wrong answer to self-care? Asking because a lot of women say getting a massage is self-care. I think a massage could be self-care for some women, because especially if you're stressed a lot and you are really anxious, your body tends to be super tight, and you tense your muscles up. So getting a massage may be just the thing that person needs to release some of that stress out of their physical body. So a massage can be a part of self-care. Now, I am a proponent for not just doing things like massages for self-care, because I think you have to deal with, if you got some wrong thinking that's causing you to keep being in these cycles, to deal with those things. But yes, absolutely, Michelle, I think self-care can be, a massage can be self-care. Let's see what else we see in the comments. Yes, Crystal says she loves getting massages. It is a part of her self-care. And so, yeah, I think it can be a part of it. It may not be your totality when you're talking about self-care, but definitely it can be. Pastor Sean says she had to unplug yesterday and she worked out today. When you give a lot in life, if you are a person that's a giver, and I know a lot of people, the names at least that I see in the comments, I know a lot of you are givers. And if you are constantly giving, even if that giving is not your finances, it may be giving your time, your energy, your mental space. It takes some time to say, okay, now let me recharge in whatever way recharging looks like for you. Massages are a part of self-care for a lot of people. She said, I was going to ask if massages are enough. It depends on the situation and the person, Michelle, to say if massages are enough. But I do think that could be a very good part of self-care.
And I think that we have to look at self-care from external things and also internal things.
Mhm.
So if it's just me going to get my nails done or just me getting a massage, then those things are important. Those things make you feel good. But what do I do on the inside? And so there are some other things that I do for self-care that other people may not consider, like the mentoring community that we're part of. That's self-care for
Mhm.
me. So Mondays, if at all possible, like if I do not have a political meeting on a Monday night at 7 o'clock, I know where I'm going to be uninterrupted. That's my self-care. So, we want to look at the things that we can do to
Mhm.
our bodies, but we also want to look at the things that we can do inside. That's
Yeah.
just as important.
That's a great point. Someone has a question. Etoy says, I have experienced side effects from long-term anxiety medication. Is there a period of time to use it before discontinuing?
So, well, that's a decision that you and your doctor would have to speak about. So, without knowing, what the side effects are, what I do know is that, or how long you've been taking it, I do know that sometimes people develop a tolerance when they've been on a medication for a long time. And so it is something that has been switched. Now, for the side effects to ease, for some of the medications, like, um, let's see, like SSRIs, so drugs like fluoxetine, sertraline. Well, I won't name anyway. There are some drugs that it can take like 4 weeks before those side effects go away. Because also at play, you have to think about the pharmacokinetics of the drug. So, how long does it take to get absorbed into your system? What is
Mhm.
the maximum amount that needs to be in your system? So,
Right.
all of those things are at play as well. And we all metabolize drugs differently. So, I would say, like, if you've been on it for longer than 4 weeks and you're still having side effects, the first thing you want to do is rule out that the side effects are not from something else. And then if it is determined that it is coming from that medication, then you would consider asking to be changed to something else within that therapeutic category. If that doesn't work, then you would ask, well, is there another medication that can do similar to what this can do, that if I switch that, it will not be to the detriment of my mental health.
Okay. So
But
I
don't
think
stop taking it. Do not. I
I
don't
was
know if
going to
you
say what I heard.
don't stop taking it.
Yeah, talk to your doctor. And again, if the doctor is telling you something you're not comfortable with, keep advocating and saying, "Hey, let's work through um what we need to do so that we're both on the same page." Did that
Mhm.
answer everything for you, Etoy? And did anybody else have any more questions? Shonda, you're just such a boss
Oh,
in these
thank
medication
you.
pharmaceutical streets.
Thank you.
Of course, I want to say thank you. And most of you, she says, that answered her question very good. And I don't see any other questions. You guys know I'm doing the 14-day Minding My Mental Health Challenge. It started on Wednesday. Um, yeah, Wednesday was the first, right? Yes, it started yesterday. So this is day 2. So if you missed day 1, it's not too late to jump in. You still have 12 days to get a part of it, and everything's in the group. So you can even go back and see today's challenge and yesterday's challenge. Every day people get a mental health prompt. So it's something to help them to start thinking about how to get skills and gains awareness about being mentally healthy and how to deal with those things. So if you have not signed up, I will put the comments in, or I will put the link in the comment section. If somebody can go to my page actually and grab that, put it over there, that would be great. But yeah, I want you to know that it's really, really important that we take care of ourselves, because we don't want to just be physically healthy and mentally we're not in a good place, but we also don't want to be so mentally strong and our bodies are weak. And so we just want to take care of the whole person. Thank you guys. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. I will be back here Thursday, same time. different guests. We're going to be continuing to talk about this minding my mental health. Again, we're going to tear down this stigma one episode at a time, right? We're going to get in here and really begin to open the doors for this dialogue to help people. Thank you guys so much. Shawndra, you as always, amazing, great information. If you guys don't follow her. She's got some amazing things happening. You got some t-shirts coming out. Tell us what you have. Kind of let people know what's going on for you right now.
So I just finished a pre-order of t-shirts, but I'm opening it back up. I'm stepping into the mindset transformation coaching and deliverance space. And I was talking to someone, I don't even know when, or maybe it was today, I don't know. But at any rate, it was this morning, that our mindsets control our bodies. Mm-hmm. And if like you can work out, you can eat the best foods, you can do all this other stuff, but until your mind is transformed, then you're just going to keep going in cycles with your health. So I'm stepping more into that space. So if you need coaching in that area, reach out to me. We can set up a discovery call, and that's it.
Yay, Shawndra. I'm so excited for your new endeavors. Again, if you guys have not signed up for the Minding Your Mental Health 14-day challenge, sign up, register today. You can go to my page and see the link. I'm going to also drop the link in the comment section. Thank you guys so much. Shawndra, as always, I appreciate you. I love you. And I will see you. Actually, I'll see you Sunday. I was going to say Monday, but I'll see you Sunday and Monday. So right. Thanks and have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.